Hey man, it's your boy Glizzy the Gremlin. I'm back with another video, bro. Before I start this video, I'm gonna let y'all know a couple of little things. This a video about Big U on Rolling 60, Suge Knight, Nipsey Hussle, Tekashi 69. It's a full interview from VladTV, or DJ Vlad. My bad, from VladTV. Uh, so with that being said, I need everybody to like, share, comment, subscribe. Yes, sir. We finna get into this video, man. Tell me what y'all think about everything.
1991 to 2000.
All right, here we go. We got OG Big U in the building.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming in, man.
For sure, all the time, man.
Okay, so this is your first time on Vlad TV, so I just want to get into your whole story and your whole history, because you have a very interesting and respected history, especially in Los Angeles.
Right.
So, what part of LA did you actually grow up in?
South Central LA. Born on 81st and Hoover. Raised on which we now call the 60s in Arlington and Slauson. For most of my life.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were born in the 60s?
Yeah, born in '66.
Okay, so you grew up, you were a kid in the 70s.
Right.
Describe LA in your area during that time.
It was kind of like new, because we was moving to the west side of LA, so the west side of LA was kind of just developing, you know what I mean, like for blacks being able to come to LA, and we kind of looked like we was leaving we weren't really on the east side being on Hoover, but it was like that black flight going west. So it was new, it was young. When we moved from the Hoovers to the hood, it was kind of like the first time gangs was coming west at the rate we was coming. And I think Crippin came in '69. My uncle then was original OG Crips. So when we moved to the hood, it was different. And then for us, it was a family element, because my mother had 10 brothers and sisters, and we had like a big South connection. My mother was one sister she was 3 girls and 10 boys.
Wow.
So, and they all come from like a real tight knit. So, and they all came from like this aggressive fight nature. So I can remember my uncles fighting the LAPD in the front yard. I can remember us, having picnics at Van Ness Park. And then it was kind of like, real crazy. Well, for me, it was crazy because my uncle then was like really like big. They were selling weed, real big weed dealers. And sell the weed, use the cocaine.
So during that time, you're talking about the early 70s.
Yeah.
That's when Tukey Williams and Raymond Washington came together. That was like, what, 71, I think?
See, that's kind of like before my time, and it's like a quagmire with how that's told. With Tukey and Raymond Washington, that was like, them dudes like 10 years older than us. Mm-hmm. And it's a difference between what they was doing and what eventually morphed in what is today. Like, they the original Crips and where the name came from. What we ended up doing after '79 was what we call gang banging. And that was where everything had changed.
So did you know Tukey or Raymond?
I met Tukey in prison. I met Tukey in the county jail.
Ah, okay.
We was all in 1750 together.
Okay.
He came down to fight an appeal and for a child custody, I think. And we was actually next door in 1750. I had some cases inside prison, and I had to go get locked. I got locked up, so me and him was right behind each other.
So originally, how did the Rolling 60s actually form?
With and everybody always get upset, but it's different. It's like different dudes how the name came about it. But it was like the permission was supposed to be given to Babyface, and Babyface got the permission to start a fraction of Crips. So somewhere around about, I don't want to be quoted on this, but somewhere around about 70, probably about 73, about 71, 72, they started letting people form their own gangs. And it's like you kind of had to get permission to start your own Crip fraction. And that's where the homies went to try to do their own Crip fraction. And that birthed the 60s. and that came about 73, 74.
Okay. And at what point did you actually join?
I actually never joined.
Aha. Okay.
You know what I'm
He
saying?
You never joined.
He hella funny.
I'm you know, I'm one of them guys who just here.
Just around.
Put it like this. Like the permission was supposed to be given to Babyface, and Babyface got the permission to start a fraction of Crips. So somewhere around about, I don't want to be quoted on this, but somewhere around about 70, probably about 73, about 71, 72, they started letting people form their own gangs. And it's like you kind of had to get permission to start your own Crip fraction. And that's where the homies went to try to do their own Crip fraction. And that birthed the 60s. And that came about 73, 74.
Okay. And at what point did you actually join?
I actually never joined.
Aha. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Cap.
You never joined.
Cap.
I'm
That's cap.
you know, I'm one of them guys who just here.
Just around.
Put it like this.
Stop the
It ain't
cap.
on you, sometimes it's in you. You know what I mean? You kind of like
Right.
you walk a certain life and you live a certain life and you from a certain area.
You straighten that up.
I like to tell dudes I ain't from nowhere, I am there. That's what I am. You know what I mean?
You
Like
straighten that up real fast.
it's where it's in your heart.
So you're in this area, and the 80s come around.
Yeah.
And with the 80s comes crack. Mm-hmm. You go from, a place where suddenly you got this drug introduced, and it has massive effects in the
Massive.
neighborhood on every level, financially, in terms of addicts, the destruction to the family, to the home, prisons, violence, everything else like that. Do you clearly remember, like right when crack hit that area?
Yeah, I remember when crack, but it didn't hit us like that in the 80s early, because and it was crazy for me because I always knew drugs. I knew like I said, my family come from that. I was one of the cats who was introduced to the selling and making money of drugs at an early age. So let me take you back to 84, no, let me say 80, 79, 80, it was pretty much PCP, Angel Dust, and it was a pill generation, kind of like it is right now. Mm-hmm. We didn't see cocaine come until the first thing they was doing was ether basing with it. It was always snorting it and doing whatever they did with it, shooting it. We had seen ether base come first. And that was kind of like 81, 82, we used to hear about like these old cats doing this other thing with the cocaine. They're not tooting it or shooting it. They doing something called ether basing. And they was getting it off the mirror and trying to cook it, and then that morphed into crack cocaine. And that was kind of like 82. And like 82, you started seeing people not leaving the house and focusing on just like messing with this rock.
Yeah, it was called Ready Rock in the
It was
beginning.
called, yeah, it was called.
Yeah.
It was a lot of different names, and so when it actually hit was like 83, and I came back home 84, and we went from being able to just, and it changed it because two things happened major, the influx of guns, and a different kind of guns, and then
Like the automatics. And
the
everything else like
automatics,
that, yeah.
because we hadn't even seen automatics. We weren't even having no automatics then, and especially like what we was inflamed by the 9mm from the movie that came from New York was King of New York when Lawrence Fishburne had the 9mm in the King of New York. We was like, oh, that what the, you know what I mean? Because we come from the Clint Eastwood era, the pistols and the 4.5 and the magnums. So when crack came, all the different movies came that influenced the culture at the same time. So it was kind of like a two-way street. But when the cocaine hit, it made it so we had more money than we ever had. We had availability and access to money.
Right, because you didn't really have millionaires in that area before then.
No, well, we kind of like we always was known as like the so-called wealthy Crips or whatever, because in our area we live in houses, like the projects in certain parts of Compton and Watts and all that. They in tenements and projects. In our area is houses. So in our area, which is called the '60s, is different. It's like you may have somebody that it's generational. You'll have people who've been going to school or knew each other from age 5 years old because their mothers own these houses and they have ownership instead of living in apartments, and they may be living in these apartments 5 years, 3 years, and they moving out and transitioning in and out these apartments. Ours was different. You know what I mean? Like we lived on the block, you know, Arlington. If you listen to one of the songs, it's called "It's a Struggle," you're gonna hear us talk about where it was 10 of us that lived on the same block. And it was more than us that lived on the same block, but we all lived up Arlington. And so that's where we was called the Arlington Gang. But the Arlington Gang is actually the first block of Arlington. It's Arlington, then the 2nd Ave, 3rd Ave, 4th Ave, which is the Rolling 60s. So we was the Arlington boys on the Rolling 60s. So as we got older, and this is, I was gonna explain that to you. So as we got older, we would go places and dudes would say, "Where y'all from?" Because no matter what, you had to be from somewhere in LA. And we from Arlington. And like, what is that? Okay. But we all knew martial arts. You're talking about, it was 7 first cousins. We all studied martial arts. That was the one thing our family made us do. No matter what you did, you had to go do martial arts. You had to go to karate school. That's where you got discipline at. If you got F's in school, that's where you got you got everything happened at the karate school for us with our family. So when we would go places, dudes would ask me where I'm from. I'm telling them Arlington. Immediately, what is that? Oh, we're gonna show you where that. Where that's at? What street? Now we tell them where it's at. Oh, y'all from '60s. All right, yeah, fuck it. You got a problem with the '60s? And so we just take it down.
So you say you got out in '84?
No, I got out in 2004.
No, but originally you said...
I came back home from Chicago. I got kicked out of the state of California in 82.
82?
Yeah, they kicked me out and told me I couldn't come back until...
Wait, they kicked you out of the state of California completely?
Yeah, they used to do that. It was either go to the Army or you had to leave.
Oh, they don't have rules like that anymore?
No, they're just now starting back to do it.
Okay.
Now that we on the verge of like I guess with this conflicts, they offering youngsters now that's in that's going to Central Junior Hall the chance to go to YA. But with us back then, it was a lot of stuff that had happened, and I was on the run for about 1.5 years. And so when they finally caught up with me, they couldn't find me guilty of a lot of stuff, so they only would release me to my father, and he was in Chicago. That was my first time meeting him.
Okay. Like, as a kid, were you getting arrested at all, or not really?
No.
Okay, that started to come later.
That started coming later. I mean, I got arrested a couple of times for robberies, but I didn't do no time, no juvenile time.
Okay. So you come back to your neighborhood in '84, and crack hits South Central. What do you start doing at that point?
Shoot, I can remember the first day I came back. I just came to the block on 10th Avenue. All the homies was there, and everybody had thousands in their pockets. Like, I'm talking about everybody had thousands. And I'm looking like, so y'all doing it just from this? And it was basically like, shit, get in and get your check. The homies pulling up in foreign whips and ragtop Mustangs is all over the block. And it was really get in and figure it out.
All that is great in the beginning. The money starts coming, and then the law starts to catch up with you.
Yeah. Then I mean, well, really, if you look back at it in hindsight, it was more like that started coming. The conflict with the homies started coming. The inside conflict, the bantering, the mistrust kicked in. It was a lot of stuff came with cocaine. When cocaine came, it was overwhelming because we were getting money and we didn't understand how it was affecting us. You know, we went from, and it was 2 areas with me. It was it was the era before I left and went to jail again in 2000. Got back out in 2000. In 87, and then went to Minnesota, and that's really kind of like when I really started getting a lot of money, and then I fell again in 91. But up until that era, it was kind of like the Boys in the Hood, like kind of like the real, like really like the Boys in the Hood movie. Mm-hmm. I think that's the closest I can say that's out there that can depict it. But the drugs, to me, it just kind of like destroyed the fabric of what we were, and it was devastating to me because you really can only trust certain people. It became small, like your pocket became small with your homeboys.
There was a situation that happened with football player Kermit Alexander.
Oh yeah, with Lil Fee.
So apparently there was a football player, I think he played for the 49ers at one point and a few other teams. And a home invasion happened. His mother, sister, and 2 nephews were killed.
Yeah.
And it was the wrong house.
Supposedly.
Supposedly it was 2 houses down.
I wasn't even in town.
He knows something.
Yeah. And it was pinned on the Rolling 60s.
On low, yeah.
And that kind of turned a microscope onto the Rolling 60s at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it started all types of investigations and everything else like that. So you weren't around during that time?
No, I was in Chicago.
Okay, but you saw the after effects.
Yeah, I saw it. I came home like shortly after that. And it was crazy. I mean, but really, to be honest with you, like, it was one of them cases where they had to put it on somebody.
Yeah.
It wasn't never a confession. It was never nobody actually said these guys did it. And they used the technology to say that Loke did it, which is who I call Loke Lil Fee and on Taekwon Cox. They said that they had fingerprints from him off a weapon that was
My bad, gang. Hey, if y'all still watching, let me know in the comments if y'all think he telling the truth tonight, man.
Supposed to be recovered. But now, even today, what is this? Then 40 years later, 30 years later, they starting to question all the evidence. And first of all, you couldn't even do fingerprints back then. And the gun that they so-called recovered, they never got it from him. They got it from somebody else. So it's kind of like you built the case. And I think Horses, which is Burns, was convicted in a separate trial, and he didn't have nothing to do with it. You know what I mean? But it was something that happened, and I don't have no problem with talking about it because I feel like they got a raw deal.
Yeah, it was a lot easier to fake evidence back then, and to
we see now.
There was no cameras, there was no video cameras, there was no nothing. There's no forensic evidence. There's no DNA evidence. You could scare someone into confessing whatever.
No, and neither one of them confessed to nothing.
Oh, really? So it wasn't even that?
Nah, nobody confessed to
nothing. It was all
nothing.
circumstantial.
It was all circumstantial. Yeah. It was all basically they came up with something, and at the time you got to remember it was crack cocaine. The neighborhood was moving and growing, and you had if you were an officer or you were a police station, you got to put the case on somebody. I don't know what the mindset was on that. But,
I mean, it's a professional football player.
Yeah.
So the whole country is looking at the situation.
Yeah. And I was 17. I was 17. We was baby. Loke was 17, young, when he caught the case. And so, but dealing with all that, and I think his case come up right now. They in review right now.
You've been shot before?
Yeah, 7 different times. No.
7 different occasions?
Yeah.
Okay.
My first time I was 14.
Can you talk about any of those times?
15. Yeah, shoot. I was the one who got shot. No. Nah, it ain't nothing to it. I was my first time we was on some bull crap. And
at 14.
At 14. We was in the Fire Deuces in I was doing some stuff and ended up getting shot first time, and I think I was shot in the shoulder the first time, then second time, right here in this, no. First time was in this shoulder, the second time was in this shoulder, and right here in this arm. My homeboy shot me in the finger right here on that.
Your friend shot you in the finger?
Yeah.
Doing what?
The thought our house was gonna get raided.
Okay.
This is the early 80s, 86, 85. I had an apartment on 10th Avenue, and we used to serve out the bars. And so what we did was we had bars inside the house, we had bar door inside the door and bars on both of the windows. And we had a bar door on the inside. So we used to serve, and so when the police pull up, by the time they pull up the first bars, they still got to get inside the second bars. So we thinking the police is coming, but they hitting the house next to our apartment. We throw all the guns out the window. We on the third floor, and then he going to get the guns out the window, and I'm pointing like, look, right there. And I guess when he pulled it, that was the time I got shot in the finger. That shit hurted the most. Then shot in the legs 2 times, shot in these I shot both legs. And it just, perils of the streets of LA.
Well, each one of those, well, maybe not the finger part, but each one of those other shootings could have ended your life.
Yeah.
A little bit over, a couple degrees over this way.
Especially this one.
Yeah.
Right here.
That could have hit your heart.
Yeah, no, it hit me right here, right on the,
yeah.
Right here.
I mean,
this was the only time I really was tripping because my mother, when I woke up, I'm looking at my mother, and she in the hospital, she like, when is this gonna stop? I'm like, whenever they get these handcuffs off me.
So every time you got shot, you never thought to actually quit and say, let me just start over somewhere else?
We was ignorant. It was pretty much, our mindset then was we're in a war, we trying to win, we want everybody to know who we are. You're gonna know who our name is, you're gonna remember us.
That's how it still is.
It's like being in the Army, you know what I mean? This is it's our badge.
I read Monster Cody's book as well, you just mentioned it. And I remember he said something interesting in that book. He said that, when he was gangbanging, if an enemy rolled up on his block, they would sit there and shoot it out, regardless of how outnumbered they were.
Mm-hmm.
One cop would roll up and everybody would scatter.
Crazy, ain't it? Crazy.
Doesn't matter if you're 100 deep on that block.
And I think that comes from, I know it comes from slavery. It comes from the representation of the cops being the overseers, and the mindset of us not having a love or respect for our people. Because you got to first gain the love and respect for your own kind, or gain the love and respect for something that you will live and die for. So from the training of you have to respect this group as opposed to this group. And it's the same one. They've all got guns and they all have, but the mentality of it's the cops you got to run, it takes the training, you know what I mean?
I feel like,
and that's actually what I see it being.
I feel like the only reason people wouldn't and would run from the police, I'm gonna say would run from the police and not shoot at them or kill them like they would kill each other, is because we as people will, and not me, and it's just period, this somebody in every situation, every family, they gonna tell, and they want their freedom more than you. Like, that's what it's coming down to. Motherfuckers wanting their freedom. Motherfuckers not knowing how to cope with the situations that happen. And that comes with being around motherfuckers. When you around motherfuckers, that shit come with shit. Especially people like him. He explaining that shit. He telling you how he is. And that's how it is everywhere in most situations. Do not be nowhere you ain't ready to be in. Like, for real. And that go for him too, cause shit, he would have been shooting cops and everything too if he knew that everybody around him wasn't gonna snitch. Man, let me know what y'all think though.
Not being it because it's death, it's certain death, or it's the possibility of death regardless. If it's the cop roll up shooting or it's somebody else roll up shooting. It's still a possibility of death, but in our mind, in our community, we've been trained to just run, just always see them as the overseers. Because you can see the same thing where they could pull up in a European community and these white boys ain't gonna run at all. Like, so what?
I got lawyers.
got lawyers, or the mentality is not to run.
Yeah.
Where they don't see them as a paramilitary group who is out to really dominate you. And then because whenever you're dominated by a group, they have to show that. And that's when you see these killings of unarmed people, and they're getting away with it because they have to show that they have the ability to kill you and off you. And that goes back years. These killings ain't new.
Like, what was your worst experience with police?
When you want to start.
Just give me the highlights.
First time I got beat up by Shepherd on 2nd Avenue. I had to probably been, I wasn't even in the streets yet. I was coming home with my books and the homies had just ran through and we had this little cut and I think they was chasing maybe Key Rock or I'm can't remember who they was chasing, but we had this little cut. This is where we can run from the police and we could run certain ways and we had little booby traps. And if you didn't know when to jump or when to run through the circle, your ass was gonna be flipping on your face. And so we was sitting there and we could look down the little side through the houses and wait, and there they go. Right when they got to the spot, flipped up and hit right into the wall. And when he got out, Shepherd came up and he just beat us all up, lined us up on the gate, and went to work on us.
With the baton?
Nah, he didn't hit us with no baton, but
Fists?
Yeah. And so that was like, all right.
And that type of thing continued through over the years?
Yeah, that was over the years. I mean,
so you would just get beat up by the police every
it
so
was
often.
it was they thing. They could do what they want to. It was a different era back then.
Right, there's no body cams.
No. And then and I was telling my nephew about the thing they called the flashlight therapy in the county jail back in the days. It was really like
beat you with flashlights?
They was killing dudes. It was like, really you could die. And then going in the county jail, and at that time back then was more, you had to worry more about the police than you did about other inmates.
The LA riots happened. And you talked about how on the gang side it actually unified things.
Yeah.
Can you describe that?
I was gone.
You were gone.
I was gone again. I had, when I left, I maybe been in jail maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And then I got charged, some dudes that stabbed us in police while I was in jail. And they ended up charging me with that too. But nothing happened. I ain't had nothing to do with that.
Okay. But the riots themselves kind of unified the Crips and Bloods to a certain degree. It
unified the Crips and the Bloods to a certain degree. And that was something that, of course, the overseers couldn't have happen. So then it was things put in place that, kind of broke that union up. But it was good for a moment. It was good for people to see that they could get together. I was on the phone with, when I think the police had came through and did a drive-by, on the homies.
The police did a drive-by?
Yeah.
Wow.
You gotta remember, they had took over the streets, barricaded the streets, and the streets was like locked down, and they was coming through popping. I think it was something like, it might be a research, a couple hundred people died after that, or during that time.
Wow. By police? Well,
I wouldn't say by police, but just whatever,
Whatever, yeah. So at what point do you actually do your longest bid?
From 1991 to 2004.
Okay, because you originally got 23 years?
Originally since 56 years.
56 years.
They was only able to sentence me to 23.
And you ended up doing 13?
Ended up doing 13.
So what did you get 56 years for?
For nothing. They said it was possessive of sales. It was robbery, because what I used to do was I would come with a bag. And when I come with the bag, when they came with the bag, we would take the bag. So basically that's what it was. They never came with no drugs. When it was an undercover police officer, we was set up and ended up with a robbery, kidnap, and assault. Because they said that I had assaulted the police officer or something, you know what I mean? And they called kidnap by moving him for any amount of feet. So, and it ended up getting dropped down to whatever have you. But.
Well, you were how old at the time in 91?
22, 23.
You were a 23-year-old being told that you're going to get 56 years in prison. You were going to get out at 78.
When they fly in cars.
How does a 22-year-old really work that out in their head that they're not going to get out until they're an old man?
This is two parts of that, because so many of the homies had already been sentenced and they was getting life. You have to kind of look at it like, well, at least I'm not getting life, and I'm doing half time.
I mean, 56 years though is.
It is different. It's a different way you have to rationalize it.
Okay.
Then you're looking at it like this is a part of life that we chose. So it's like you're gonna soldier up or you're gonna fold. And in our life, in the life we live in South Central LA and we live in the streets, it's kind of like that's what you know what you're signing up for.
Okay.
It ain't no way out of it because you chose this.
Well, and you sort of know that it's coming.
You know it's coming eventually. Yeah. I was one of them cats that knew I was eventually gonna do some time.
Okay. I
mean, I knew I was moving, but when I got the time, my mentality was different. I had already cut my hair off. I'd already changed. I was on some different. I was not totally different, but my relationship to my people was different, and it was growing. I was studying Islam, but I really didn't have no visible means of maintaining the lifestyle I had set for myself. You know what I mean? I had started dealing with Jim Brown, Minister Farrakhan. They actually said that in my sentencing transcripts, that the reason why they was giving me the max time was because I was taking Crips to meet Minister Farrakhan. And that was one of my aggravating circumstances.
They gave you time for bringing people to meet Farrakhan?
You have mitigating circumstances, aggravating circumstances when you get sentenced after you're found guilty. The district attorney submits to aggravating. And your attorney for your side submits to mitigating circumstances on why the judge should give you the max time and why the judge should give you the least amount of time. One of the aggravating circumstances submitted by the district attorney and the FBI who was following us at the time was that I was taking gang members to meet Minister Farrakhan and introducing them to Islam.
Which isn't illegal.
But it was to them.
It was frowned upon.
It was in my. I'm telling you, it's in my transcript.
That's
if you
crazy.
pull my sentencing transcript, you will see it.
That's crazy. So then you go to prison and you spend 13 years there.
Right.
Well, what started to really change in your mentality as the years started to drag on?
Well, like I said, my mentality had already been changed as far as, my mentality towards black people had already changed, and towards my community had already changed. It was just that being young, still being so young, and still being connected, it was the sit down only just affirmed where I needed to get, where I needed to go. But I feel like in my life I was already on my way there. My hatred for just doing stuff to people that looked like me or anybody had already kind of waned.
I mean, was there a certain level of, I'm selling drugs and I'm making money off these drugs to help support myself and my family, but the destruction of what I'm doing has long-ranging effects? And was there a level of regret?
I read Malcolm X's autobiography in maybe 90, and I was on a mission to take some work somewhere else from one place to another place, and I read the autobiography, and I cut my hair off. I flew my wife and my son, my oldest son, to Chicago, and I stayed in Chicago for maybe 3-4 months. And then I came back to LA, and my mind said I didn't want to sell drugs to our people no more. And that's what made me, but I had amassed like maybe $30,000, $40,000 a month in bills. My two little brothers in private school, paying for I think I had like 3 apartments. I had property I just bought in Minnesota, and I had all kind of stuff out here. And so it was kind of like, having those bills on how you gonna eat? I can't just, and money just draining out. So the only thing I knew, still being young, 22, 21, 22, well, I picked up the gun. Well, let me go rob. I know how to do this good. And I feel like I was robbing from the drug dealers, and then I could, remove it. But it still was it was a young man's ignorance still at the same time.
I interviewed X-Rated recently in prison. Are you familiar with his story? X-Rated was a rapper out of Sacramento in the early 90s. He was a Crip, and him and his friends, they were all teenagers at the time, were involved in a home invasion where there was like 2 rival gang members, allegedly, that they were trying to get. They kicked the door down and they ended up shooting the mother of the 2 kids. And she was like a mother of like 5 and a grandmother of like 2, and it was, and then he was the first rapper that they kind of used the lyrics of his songs against him in court, because there was like a verse about kicking down doors, shooting mamas, and there was a gun that he was pointing at his head on his album cover that matched the type of gun that was used in the murder, even though we don't know whether it was the gun or not, but essentially it was like the first rapper to get convicted.
Off his lyrics?
Off his lyrics and his album.
How long ago was this?
This was like 91, 92. It was a big story in Sacramento.
No, I was still in jail.
Yeah.
So
and he's been in jail ever since. He got life. And so he's been in jail, 30 years. And he had sort of a different point of view about gangs. And I brought this up when I interviewed Trey D. I'm going to play it for you and just get your take on it.
A gang is a parasitic organism that lives and grows and feeds on or within another organism without regard for the survival of its host, right? And that's the definition of a parasite.
I don't see it that way.
And he went on to describe how the little homie really wants to be the big homie and wants to, take over that position. And the way he kind of described it was as a parasitic organism. And, but he's been off the street for 30-something years.
He might be bitter. I mean, but I look at it like this: like everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
If you take my experience with like say my experience from prison, what was prison to me, and was prison so bad that I feared for my life. I feared going. I would tell on everybody because of my experience. What was freedom to me? What was my relationship with my woman to me? What was my what everything, how it affected you is how you view it. And then the moment that you do the interview, it bespeaks on how you react to it. Me, I can say this. There have been problems with me and my homeboys and my family, but there's no way do I see us as parasites. I understand, because I understand a little bit about the world, that every organization has problems. That's the reason why the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church came from the Catholic Church. That's the reason why Martin Luther left the church and they went to war. That's the reason why we see Baptists, Pentecostals, and all these, because they couldn't get along. So if you ask me, I would say that the gang culture is right on the line of these different churches. You gotta, if Jehovah Witness walk up to my house, my mama used to at one time go crazy, close the door and feel like the house was being invaded, and we looking like, what's happening?
Yeah.
You know, and so what's the difference? And I mean, at one time, because I study history, the churches actually were killing each other.
Oh yeah,
1500-year war between the Protestants and the Catholic Church.
Well, I mean, you could also look at the Dark Ages and the Inquisition.
Yeah.
And what they would do.
And that's still going on though. We can't do that one because we still living in that time right now.
Well, I mean, like the way they would convert people,
Yeah.
and the type of tortures and the creative aspect of what they would do to try to convert
still
people.
doing it.
Yeah.
You're still doing it right now. So I mean, we kind of ain't actually moved from that. But yeah, so I wouldn't say that. I would say this, that I think it's the mentality of the people who so-called call themselves OGs and these different people or different gangs or whatever have you. If your mentality is you call yourself an OG, but you still sitting on a corner and you just getting high, smoking and drinking, and then you got this youngster who has a vision, or he has his own car, his own house, he's doing this, he's working that. Why would I be listening to you? That's natural. I may not even have respect for you after I reach a certain age. So as young people, we look up to everybody. Because at some point we actually start physically looking up to you. Then once I get your size and I start experiencing some of the things and I start seeing that you're not elevating and you can't continue to elevate me either, then I start to lose respect for you. I look at myself compared to certain dudes who call themselves OGs, right? And I say that I continue to morph. I continue to try to offer young people something. I continue to offer young people to say that you can't be mad at the system. You can't say that you can't do it. I kind of like don't give them that excuse.
You get out of prison, and then you start getting involved in the music industry.
Mm-hmm.
And Corrupt was the first artist that you started working with?
Corrupt, I was messing with in 1990.
Yeah, so that was the first artist?
First artist, Corrupt was the
Okay.
first artist.
Was he affiliated with Death Row yet or no?
No, it wasn't no Death Row.
Okay.
It probably would never even been a Death Row if I'd have been home.
Okay.
Fact.
So, Corrupt is originally from Philly, right?
Right.
So, but he moves out and
Moves out.
he's in the 60s, he was living in the 60s
Mm-hmm.
area. And you had never managed artists or done anything music-wise until then.
Right.
So, how did it start off with you managing Corrupt?
Lamont Broomfield had Corrupt sign. And me and Lamont Broomfield grew up. It was me, Lamont Broomfield, and Battle Cat. We was like best friends.
Battle Cat, the producer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all went from like 59, and I think Battle Cat didn't go to 59, I think Battle Cat, we met at Horse Man. So Battle Cat, me, Lamont Broomfield, and Battle Cat was like partners. And then Battle Cat was always on the drums in the school, and I'd come pick him up in school. We go walk to nutrition and all that, just to like the 3 years we was there. So I went to jail, came out, went to another town, to the soda, and got a bag. Lamont come with this kid. Oh, and Tone Tobin was his garage. So they ended up making music, and Tone like, man, come over here, we got this artist we need your help with. And I come over there, it's Corrupt. And they make a Corrupt rap, like they point at anything, he rap and he's spitting it immediately, which was amazing. I'm like, then he in there recording. It was my first time ever even seeing somebody record and make music, was at Broomfield. So I think it was a Tone Tobin. So maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month later, I'm still in the streets. The little homies is coming, they want to go get down, and I'm helping them out, and I see Corrupt in the car. And I'm like, what you doing in here? Ain't you the rapper? And he like, yeah. And I'm like, man, get out the car.
You pulled him out the car.
Yeah, I'm like, you got a whole nother purpose. Like, and I know he Lamont Broomfield rapper. And I'm like, you don't need to go with the homies. And I'm like, I pulled him out the car, and I tell him, man, get on back around into the garage where you supposed to be at. And then the little homies took off on their little thing, I guess. And I seen Corrupt maybe 2 weeks later, and I'm telling the Mont, I'm like, man, you better get your boy. Your boy, he going down the wrong road. He like, nah, man, I'm cool, big homie, I didn't go. And I'm like, all right, well, you know, if you doing this, so we just was vibing in the studio. Then we get doing the paperwork. I started Delicious Entertainment. That was the name of the group back then, my company. I had already just signed a deal for a male and female exotic dance company. And it was under Delicious Entertainment. My wife wouldn't get the paperwork. So then we was doing the music part. And unfortunately, it was I was gone.
Did you ever see the Corrupt interview that I did?
Nah.
Let me play it for you. I asked Corrupt, I don't know if you remember when Kendrick had that King of New York line?
When he said he did Corrupt's line on the
he did Corrupt's line.
Yeah.
No one had actually put those pieces together though.
That it was Corrupt.
That it was Corrupt.
Yeah, I did.
Because Talib Kweli mentioned it to me, so I brought it up to Corrupt. So when I interviewed Talib Kweli, this was in, I'm looking up right now, it was August of 2013, and this got 500,000 views on YouTube. He said that Kendrick was quoting you in the in his verse, in the Control verse.
It's my killer. Sleeper cell.
You called yourself the King of New York in a previous song, and when he said it, a lot of people didn't realize it.
King of New York. What is the King of New York? What did Corrupt mean?
You tell me.
By King of New York.
What was the whole verse?
Incredible.
Hold on, maybe I can look it up.
You want mine or Kendrick's?
Your verse.
I'm important like the Pope. I'm the King of New York. I'm live from South Central. I'm a Muslim on pork. That means I'm the fucking worst. And that's all it meant. I'm the fucking worst. I'm important like the Pope. I'm important, nigga. I'm the King of New York. His name was Frank White. You notice how since somebody from the West Coast will say they're the king of fucking New York, they automatically assume we're disrespecting New York.
Right.
I'm sick of that shit. We don't have a problem with you, New York. Stop it, my nigga. King of New York is a fucking movie. It's a fucking movie. Biggie called himself Frank fucking White. Who is Frank White?
Christopher Walken.
Wrong. He's the fucking King of New York. It's a fucking movie, man.
Yeah.
We don't want your city, your country, your town. We know what we from Los Angeles, we from Compton, nigga, Watts, Inglewood, nigga, we are the West Coast. Why the fuck would we want to be where you at, nigga? We don't like your fucking streets. We like ours, cuz. Ours. We don't have a problem with you guys, my nigga.
Oh, tweak.
We don't have a problem with y'all, cuz. Sorry about that. I had to get that out.
That's the greatest ending ever. You've never seen that?
No, I never seen it.
Okay. You know Corrupt very well?
Yeah.
What's your reaction to that?
He told it right. He was talking about a movie. Like our movies influenced them, their movies influenced me. I just quoted, before he even said it, I just quoted King of New York.
Yeah.
When Lawrence Fishburne had them two tools.
The guns, yeah.
Oh, shit. We was all the King of New York. But it was out of respect. And it wasn't even about New York. It was really about that movie. Like, it was really about Frank White.
Yeah.
When we called ourselves the King of New York. And then, see, to us, King of New York don't mean King of New York. It mean the King of the NY, because to us, it's young neighborhoods.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? And that's why you see a lot of dudes from neighborhood wear the NY hat. It don't mean New York at all. If you see that Yankee hat in LA, it means neighborhood.
Okay. So you start working with Corrupt, and then Death Row starts to form.
Right.
and the dog pound and everything else like that. How did you kind of maneuver Corrupt into that whole situation?
Well, I didn't. I didn't maneuver him into it because it was kind of like he got into it, and then all the homies was mad.
What do
So
you
I
mean?
was in. I just got found guilty. I was in the reception center, and my wife came to see me, and she was like, "Corrupt wants you to call because the homies is mad at him about the being on death row." And I'm like, "Well, shit, of course you know I can't call." So I went from I was transitioning, and then when you get to the pen, you got to go through the not using the phone, get one phone call a month, so all that, and then just probably like a year or so, I'm looking at him on death row, and then the homies is mad about him saying gangster, and then Broomfield and them is mad, and so it was just a lot of, anger amongst the homies, and then Corrupt is like, well, my big brother's Big U, and I'm like, well, stall the kid out, and it kind of went from there. But I always say Corrupt is the hardest dude from the hood because he branded the hood when he wasn't even with the hood, and that was hard. And he traveled the country and took it where nobody else had ever took it, and he did it by himself a lot of time.
Oh, he was the only one that was talking
Yeah,
about.
he was kind of like he was by himself. He was with a bunch of Long Beach dudes,
Right.
representing, his city. And he came back to do a solo project. He did it right on Crenshaw and Slauson. And because I related to that because I never lived in the '60s. I always lived everywhere else. My mother I lived in the Hoovers. I lived in different lanes. I lived in different hoods. So I understood how it felt not to be on the block all the time.
Alright, y'all, man. I'm gonna drop a part 2 up on this, man, in a second, man. Everybody like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell for me. Yes, sir.